time ago, when I'd been teaching at Georgetown, living in Washington, D.C. for a number of years, my oldest daughter, Rachel, suggested that we go to the Holocaust Museum. And to be perfectly honest, I was not overly excited about going to the Holocaust Museum. I thought it would be a dreadfully depressing thing to do. But my daughter is nothing if not persistent, and she convinced me that we should go, and I agreed that we would go the next morning. We got there at the time the museum opened, and there's a line already stretched around the block, and it took us 45 minutes just to get to the entrance. Not a good way to start the day, going to a museum that I wasn't looking forward to in the first place. If you get to Washington, D.C., I'd like to highly encourage you to go to the Holocaust Museum. We spent 3 hours there, then we went to lunch, and we went back, and we spent another 3 hours there. As you would expect, there's a lot about the museum that is deeply distressing, deeply depressing, but in my opinion, it's a museum of hope. Scattered throughout the grim and grisly exhibits, there were numerous stories of people whose lives were changed by other people, small incidents perhaps, larger ones perhaps. There was an exhibit of Anne Frank there, who of course is the embodiment of hope in a time of despair. And that was very good, but you realize when you're there that Anne Frank was not an isolated case, that there were literally hundreds of thousands of people whose lives were changed by the actions of another person. We got ready to leave and we went to the gift shop, and I picked up this little token there that I carried with me. And on the back of it has a saying that you see throughout the museum, and it says, "What you do matters." What you do matters. And I carry it with me all the time, and there are times when I feel helpless or hopeless or depressed, and I reach in and I feel it, and I think, you know, what I do actually does matter. And at Doc Tepp's funeral this morning, I was struck by the number of people that were there. You know, it's an ordinary work day, it's the middle of the day, and yet the church was crowded with people. And when I was listening to the priest homily, I was not at all surprised to find out that Doc Tepp's legacy was actually international. He spread his goodness around. And I thought of my father, who was 3 times past Grand Knighted as consul in Cleveland, Ohio, and the number of people that showed up to his funeral and the impact that he had, not just on me and my 7 siblings, but on people around the world, around Cleveland as well. And then I thought of you, and I thought of the impact that some of you have had on me and on my life and on each other, and the impact you can and do have on other people's lives. And that what we do does matter, sometimes without us even knowing it. So a number of years ago, I got a letter in the mail from one of my former students who lives in another country. And she was writing, she said, to thank me for saving her life. Now, college students, and especially graduate students, are prone to exaggeration and hyperbole, so I took her letter with the opening sentence with a grain of salt. But then she went on to say that during her last semester in her MBA program, her father died suddenly of a heart attack. A week later, her very best friend was killed in a horrible car accident. She finished up a painful divorce, and she lost her scholarship. And she said she was at the end of her rope and ready to kill herself. She stopped going to classes, all except my class, which was a class on change management. And she said she kept coming to it because I had such a positive approach to dealing with change and to life. She said eventually she started to feel better. She finished up her MBA, moved back to her home country, and she was writing to let me know that she's happily married, she has 2 kids, and that life is good. And the funny thing is, I didn't know any of that. I never knew that any of that was going on in her life. She never shared any of that with me. I just simply showed up and did my job. And sometimes that's enough. Sometimes that's all we have to do is just show up and do our job. My oldest son, Nathan, a number of years ago, wrote me a note and said, "To the whole world, you may be just one person, but to one person, you may be the whole world." And I think that's true for all of us. And we all have the chance to make a difference in other people's lives that are close to us. Sometimes it's obvious, like today at Doc Teps, the number of people that showed up. And sometimes, like my former students, we help people and we don't even realize it. We don't even realize the impact we've had. So today, as we remember the impact that Doc Tep had, let us also remember the impact that we can and we do have on others. And remember that what you do matters. Thank you. God bless.